Well, I'm really happy we're having this study session, and I think it represents a lot more than the opportunity to backfill lost state transit revenue. I think it's time for us to articulate a vision of the Big Blue Bus and what it could and should be for this community at a crucial time as we begin to have regional mass transit by rail, and the need for mobility within the city is becoming increasingly clear, and residents are finding the Big Blue Bus a more attractive option, but not enough to all be using it yet. And I'd like to see a way to shift that. I look at the amount of revenue represented here potentially by the transit-oriented development on the sites that are owned by the Big Blue Bus, and that makes an awful lot of sense. I mean, that's very valuable property, and if we want to maximize the benefits of transit, that's exactly where we want to have the development go. That's in keeping with all the principles of smart growth. But of course, the impacts of that development are not going to be felt by the Big Blue Bus or its general ridership. The impacts of the development is going to be felt by Santa Monica residents who live close to these places. About a year ago, I brought up the issue of how now with Santa Monica College and UCLA, we have discovered that if we subsidize riders and have a deal for a pass, that still counts toward the fare box revenue that transit systems have to report to get their state and federal funding. And I forget the exact number. It used to be 38%, I think, of your money had to come from the fare box. And it turns out the SMC fares count towards that. Well, if they count, and if the impact of this development is going to be felt by Santa Monica residents, and if we want to have residents ride the bus, does it not make sense to use this to give anyone who lives in Santa Monica a bus pass? So the Big Blue Bus becomes the obvious way to get places in the city. And I looked at the economics of what that would represent, and of course, it's a daunting figure. We didn't have it a year ago, but now that we're looking at this transit-oriented development, let me just read these numbers out. Approximately 4,000 Santa Monica residents currently use the Big Blue Bus. They represent, or they did a year ago, 16.9% of the total boardings. So that means by far most of the people on the Big Blue Bus live outside Santa Monica and would still be paying the fare. I would like to see us think of ways to allow this transit-oriented development to pay back the residents for the impacts by providing them with free mass transit within the city. And then, of course, the next step is going to be thinking about where our routes could and should go to better serve the city itself once the light rail is here. But as we move forward, I hope we're looking at more than just, how are we going to cobble together a budget for the next year or two. This is a moment where we can, as I say, articulate a vision for the next generation of mass transit in Santa Monica.